Hello guys, welcome back to my channel and enjoy this fanfic part 1. Now let's start the fanfic. His black hair flickered in the wind as he watched the people below celebrate. A festival was being held, on this day, October the 10th. The date of his little sister's birthday and more importantly the day he lost his father. Minato stood proud from the top of the Hokage tower as he addressed the people, causing the raven-haired man to snort. There was a time when he saw that man as his father. But that time passed. After all, what father in their right mind would seal a demon into his own children? Without noticing, Naruto's hand slowly made its way up to the corner of his eye, tracing the seal that was woven around it. Naruto saw a redhead slowly make its way up to stand next to the Hokage. He had to fight the urge to snarl at her. No matter what he did, no matter how nicely he went about, that bitch would not let him get to know his own little sister, the one that had to share the other half of his curse. He wished he had his mother. He had seen photos of her loving face and knew if she was still alive all of this could have worked out. They could have been a happy family, but alas, he was exiled more or less and his little sister was seen as Konoha's princess. He slowly closed his eyes, hiding their golden color from the world before turning on his feet and heading back to his home, having had enough of the festivities for one night. His cloak flapping in the wind as he bounded across the rooftops, his feet barely making a sound as they touched the tiles he used to push back into the air. His little sister Natsumi, she would be starting the academy this year. No doubt her trip will be easier than his. The raven-haired teen found it funny. He was the bastard son of their greatest cage, while his sister, who sadly was related to his whore of a stepmother, were seen as royalty. He hailed from two great clans, for crying out loud. His black sandals made no noise as he landed softly on the grass below him. He looked around quickly, making sure he wasn't followed. It wouldn't matter much if he was, as the animals wouldn't let anyone but him and a selected few near his house. But it was better to be safe than sorry. When the coast was clear, he pulled his traveling cloak around him tighter and stepped forward as the tigers came out to greet him before sulking back into the shadows. He was seen as the king of Training Ground 44. The animals knew this, even the shinobi knew this. Appointments were ran past him for those who wanted to enter, as he was known to kill any that stepped inside the forest, giving it its name. The Forest of Death. With a small flick of his wrist, he opened the front door and trudged himself inside, hearing it close behind him. With a stretch of his arms, his cloak was removed and hung on the hanger, being the door, as he continued through to the kitchen in his shinobi garb. He wore black anbu pants and a skin-tight black t-shirt that came down to his wrists. He wore no flak jacket because, as far as the villagers was concerned, he was just a monster that didn't deserve a rank. He made his way into the kitchen and started the kettle, intent on having a cup of coffee to help wake himself up and bring some heat back into his body. Winter was just around the corner, he could feel as much. He did not understand how people figured out how to mark the changing of season, but he left it be, knowing it must have been someone smarter than he, or a madman. He pulled out his mug and filled it with 2 teaspoons of the brown flaky gold he called coffee, before dusting a light layer of pixie dust over the top. Sugar. The kettle gave its resounding click, letting him know its task was done. With a flick of his wrist, a thread of chakra was sent from his finger trip, deftly hooking around the kettle and dragging it to where he was with his mug, filling it with the steaming water. A few drops spilt onto his bench. The way he handled it was lazy, and he could have done it properly without making a mess, but this also helped his chakra control. He needed very fine control for that jutsu, and even doing just that little trick helped him to learn how to wield it better. The sun was setting outside as he grabbed a washcloth from the sink, quickly wiping up the mess he had made. It bathed his home in a natural orange light, making it feel more alive. He hated that feeling. It was painted a deep blue for a reason, so as to remain cold like he was taught to be. It was to remind him that there was no room for weakness in his life, no matter how appealing it may become. And finally, it was to ward people off. He did not like weak-willed visitors. If they were going to bother him, the better have a bloody good reason. His coffee was quickly finished off afterwards, leaving a bitter taste in his mouth as he moved through his house and headed to his dojo, noticing the change in flooring as it became tatami. The soft feeling beneath his feet as he carefully moved onto his knees and gave a small bow, putting his forehead to the floor. As he sat back up straight, still kneeling on the floor, he closed his eyes and felt his power slowly wrap around him. The reason he was banished. The material he already knew used his chakra as a barrier of some kind to redirect the damage that would be done to him, such as if a kunai was to strike his side instead of slicing him like it normally would, it would become a blunt force spread across the side hit to reduce the damage he took. He let it wrap around his ponytail and finish covering his body before slowly raising to his feet. His suit of armor, his curse and blessing. It was streamlined and silent. It did not get in his way, nor was it too visible. It could blend nicely into the sounding areas in a moment's notice, making him invisible to the eye. He felt a weight appear on his back and knew his bow was back in its place. He had spent so long working on this obsidian beauty that it was littered with seals that would make even Jiraiya cringe at their complexity. It was perfectly silent. It quickly applied a seal to the arrow when he notched it, masking all sound the arrow would make and masking any sound that would come from what it hits. It was his perfect long-range weapon, able to kill in the dead quiet of night without giving away his position. Next was his katana that rested lightly running down his spine. Its case was a very dark gray while the blade itself was a purple that was heavily tinted, making it much darker than normal so as it did not stand out too much. Packs of kunai rested on his thighs. They refilled by the suit, draining his chakra to forge the metal, allowing him to use them like they were going out of fashion if he needed to. He pulled his blade from its case and felt a small spark of lightning that ran down it because of his bloodlines. This suit framed his body and made him feel stronger than he ever could when he posed as a human. There was a faint knock at his door, showing how impressive his hearing was to hear it from over 50 meters away, through closed doors and walls. He let the suit fall from his body into ash on the ground. He stared fondly at it for but a moment before making his way to the front door, opening it to see a group of Anbu there. He sent a small glare their way and nodded, letting them know he wanted them to talk. Kurama-san, your friend is at it again. To Shiko's this time. He hated Minato at times. Not only did the man take his name from him, but he also forced him to allow this group of Anbu onto his property for reasons such as these. I will leave in a moment. Be gone before I make you leave. He huffed, closing the door in their faces. He placed his cloak back over his shoulders and did the clasp at the front, sighing when he heard it click into place. He let his body shift away into smoke as the air carried him to where he needed to go. Anko's night out had slowly started to go downhill. It all started out like normal. Her and Kurenai went out to go have a few drinks. Sadly, it would seem that two drunk 16-year-olds is too much for the perverted Konoha to just sit and watch as the men started to become increasingly touchy towards them. Thus lead to the predicament she was in now, with her back to Kurenai as they were surrounded on all sides by lusting Chunin and Junin alike. Things were not boding well for the two. I still find it interesting how often you can get yourself into trouble, Anko-san. Her eyes went wide as she heard his calm voice break across the ruckus that was being made by the drunken men. Some of them even dared to turn and saw the golden-eyed man looking rather bored with the entire situation he was now placed in. You are all too noisy for my liking. Please leave now. I am sure that no one wants to deal with you. Also remember to pay to Shiko for any damage you caused to his bar, or I will hunt you down for him. He tilted his head to the side when no one started to move. He rubbed some gunk away from his eyes and flicked it to the ground in disgust. If you wish to fight me so bad, please meet me out on the street. Do not stare like some common fangirl. It is unbecoming of shinobi. Kurenai was looking between Anko and the strange man. Who is that? She whispered so hopefully only her purple-haired friend would hear. Sadly, she did not know about Naruto's acute hearing. I am her handler, so to speak. They call me when she gets in trouble, so things do not escalate from this level. Kurenai looked back to her friend to see her sheepishly nodded in agreement while scratching the back of her head. A small red hue covering her cheeks, showing the sake they had been dining on had its effect on her still maturing body. There was some grunting from the males as some of them called him out on what he said and moved outside, taunting him. A glint passed through his eyes, causing Anko to shiver where she stood. Even if she was only 2 years his junior, it felt like there were light years between them in skill. And that glint in his eyes had always promised pain since the moment he had become her handler. He motioned for the two girls to follow and Anko quickly took Kurenai's hand, not wanting to be on his bad side with how he was now. Not again. Trust me, it is better to just listen to him now, just listen and watching. Kurenai nodded her head dumbly as she saw the group crowd around the raven-haired man with eyes like a snake. He centered himself in the crowd and lowered his stance to almost a crouch. One arrogant chunin came in and attempted to sweep his bag leg. This attempted ended in Naruto putting a foot in his face and kicking him down into the dirt below them, watching as the man twitched for a few seconds before passing out. Seeing that no one else was as keen to get things going, he moved into a more relaxed stance, looking like he was ready to fence against someone, his right hand slightly forward at throat height while his left sat at his sternum, both in a position to defend or attack if needed. His feet were relaxed and felt light, meaning they could move at a moment's notice. I beg you to not waste my time. A small group of Junin rushed him. He hoped that their speed had been reduced by the amount of alcohol they had consumed tonight, or he seriously feared for Konoha's safety. One was taken out quick enough with a strong backfist to the face, knocking him down flat. Naruto spun quickly on the spot, catching the second one's arm, giving it a sharp twist before the bone broke free from its prison of skin. He gave a side backfist to the person that seemed much too interested in his arm for the mon's own good. He saw the final man approaching him and just sighed, giving a small kick to the man's gut which made him double over before hooking his leg around the mon's neck and flipping them both in the air in order to build his momentum for the toss at the end of his move, which caused him to kick up a bit of dirt as the final man slid across the ground. Why, you're mon, no, you're a demon through and through. Why you are even allowed in this village is beyond me. The speaker had gotten rid of his fear halfway through his talk. Either that or he seemed to remember he was a shinobi that should not show something quite so obvious as that to his opponent. Naruto tilted his head to the side and blinked his eyes at the man. Your point being, I am here to do what must be done. You fools are disturbing the peace, be gone. He waved his hand and expected the group to leave. He turned on his feet to address Anko when a bottle was smashed over the back of his head. He felt a small amount of blood flow out of the wound and drip down his back. I shall give you to the count of 10 to leave before I kill you for being such an incredibly dim-witted imbecile. Naruto did not even need to start counting as the once arrogantly smirking man looked ready to soil himself as he ran. They call me a demon, then expect me to go down after being hit with a bottle? Such idiots. He mused more to himself than the girls that were left, Kurenai's jaw threatening to unhinge from the angle it was held on while Anko pumped her fist up in the air. Kurama 32 to the villagers 0, looks like you are still ahead, Kurama-san. She tried to say politely at the end, knowing he could very well still be in his mood. He turned to her and gave her a small smile. Anko-san, aren't you meant to tell me when you plan on having a night out? So you say in your own words, by order of the council and Hokage. Naruto mused. He noticed Kurenai taking in his appearance and found it odd. He almost enjoyed her red eyes dancing over his body, almost. I forgot. Naruto gave her a small tisk and shook his head, showing he disapproved. I know it is still rather early, but I think that is enough of a night out, don't you agree, Anko-sanin? He motioned to Kurenai for her name. Said teen jumped in her shoes when he pointed towards her. She too pointed at herself, causing him to nod. Yes, you. What is your name, friend of Anko-san? Kurenai. She stuttered out under his golden gaze. He shifted the thought around in his head for a few moments. Crimson, just like her eyes, it fit in a strange way. I guess the polite thing would be to escort you two home. Anko nodded happily. It seemed he was not in such a grumpy mood anymore. That was always good, seeing as he could be very violent when he was. The group had quickly reached Kurenai's apartment as she bid them farewell. She looked at Naruto for a few seconds longer than what is expected, causing him to tilt his head in confusion. He felt a small nudge in his ribcage and looked to see Anko poking him with her elbow. She totally has a crush on you, Kurama-s. Nah, I am just going to call you Kurama. Naruto studied her for a few more seconds before laughing internally. Then I shall call you Gaki. Now come on Gaki, let's get you to home. He taunted, only stopping when he saw her downcast expression. What happened, Anko? He dropped all kinds of formality mostly because he knew she wasn't a big fan of it, neither was he, but it showed that he was still human and not some rampaging monster. IIG got kicked out of my apartment today. I was going to try to seduce a boy into taking me home and letting me spend the night so I could fix it in the morning. Naruto internally snorted at the idea. It was stupid. You can sleep on my couch tonight, tomorrow I can help you find a new house. But just for future references, trying to seduce a boy normally means you wish to sleep with him, not in his house. She blushed heavily at the thought, having not planned that far ahead, only just noticing that he had said she could stay the night. Really, Kurama? You would do that? He gave a small shrug of his shoulders. It makes my job easier seeing as I know where you are. He gave her a small smile as she gave her apologies. Later that night he was called to the Hokage's office. The black-haired teen who seemed to look much like Madara had in his glory days looked across at the man who would have been his father, that is if things had have stayed how they were. The first thing he noticed was that there were no Anbu in the room. His black hair no longer held in its ponytail flowed down his back and framed his face, making his golden animalistic eyes ever more piercing. You called Hokage-sama. His voice was cold, showing he was not happy to be here. He had complied like normal and showed, even if he felt a small amount of hatred he could not explain towards the man. Minato stood from behind his desk and passed a file over to Naruto, the black-haired teen reading through it, quickly raising his brows at the end. It is a 4-year job. One I can't trust to anyone else. Naruto snorted and put the file calmly on the cage's desk. Are you not worried that I will betray you? I am only your bastard demonic offspring that holds no love for anything. People are not sure whether I will attack them or not for just walking down the same path. Minato grimaced at how calm and collected he could sound about the event. He had listened to Kushina and because of that he had created a monster. You are loyal to the village, not its villagers. That is why I can trust you with this position. You cannot be bribed as you have no need for money. You are tougher to crack than Ibiki and scarier on the battlefield than the man you resemble. Naruto inwardly smirked at the praise from his father while he stayed calm on the outside, his face impassive. You do not need to tell me what I am good at. I trained to be that way after all. I will agree under 2 conditions. He started. Minato motioned for him to explain. I will not be some pawn for the council to play with. I will only take orders from yourself, in person. Minato could see the logic behind that. Naruto's chakra was too violent for a normal genjutsu to work against. The Iliosin would just be rubbed away like it was sand. Secondly, when I become a Junin, the council will not force a team on me. I will take one if I choose to. Minato nodded. The terms were reasonable enough. Sounds like we have a deal. Oni. Minato held his hand out to shake Naruto's when he saw the suit that would become feared spread over the boy's body and cover every inch of who he really was. His voice, now sounding distorted and demonic, came through the strange fox-like Oni-like helmet. My blade serves Konoha. He gave a small bow and vanished into the night sky, already taking off home. Tomorrow he would set up for his new job. Kurenai sat on her bed in her small one-person apartment, thinking to herself as she clutched her legs closer to her body. She wasn't ready for bed yet, so she was using this method to stay warm, as it seemed to be too much effort at the moment to turn the heater on. She had made chunin earlier in the week. Tonight was meant to be their night to celebrate, but she could see the logic behind Kurama's words. She wondered weakly why Anko never told her about him. Was he hiding something? She let out a small groan and flopped down into her bed, deciding she may as well try to get some sleep. His voice was charming and he was sounded by this aura that she found attractive. Gah! She exclaimed, flipping over and putting her face into the pillow. She was too old to be having a schoolgirl crush. Her brow furrowed thinking about it. He looked like someone she should know. Someone important. She remembered his fight. He was a little cocky, but he had a very good reason as she saw how quickly he dispatched Junin. It made her wonder what chance she would have against him, more than liking it would be slim or non-existent even. It made her wonder why someone like that was tasked with watching over Anko. That was her last thought as she slowly drifted off to sleep. She awoke early in the morning, quickly finishing her routine before walking outside to head to the local dango and coffee shop, knowing it was where she met Anko every morning. She saw the black-haired teen walking alongside her again and she inwardly frowned, thinking that maybe Anko claimed him last night. She was further convinced when Anko parted away from him and bid him thanks for letting her stay the night. Turning away from Naruto, she saw the look on Kurenai's face and gave a small childish giggle. "We didn't do anything, Kurenai. Geez, what do you take me for?" The raven-haired girl deadpanned but decided not to bother answering the question. "Whatever. It's not like I cared anyway." She crossed her arm over her chest and gave a small huff. "Usadu," Anko chimed as she walked into the store to order their breakfast. Naruto arrived in his new office with his suit already in place. Okay, the best way to describe this thing is to picture Madara's perfect Susanoo being worn as a suit of skin-tight armor. A very deep blue-black main coloring with a slight crimson tint to the trim. Hope that helps. He calmly walked further into his office and saw a note on the desk asking him to show up in the council room at 9. Looking at the clock on his desk, he saw he had only 15 minutes and just decided to walk over, seeing as he didn't exactly have enough time to do anything else. He could hear the noisy debate that was happening inside and figured that they wouldn't hear him even if he knocked, so using his preferred method of travel, turning into smoke. He filtered into the room through the keyhole and reformed, standing directly behind the Hokage, freaking out many of the seat holders in the room when they finally took notice. One larger civilian member stood up in outrage. The thought of someone just breaking into the council rooms like the rules didn't apply to them. "Who do you think you are? Barging in here and covering your face from us? I demand you tell us your name." Naruto tilted his head to the side before looking at Minato. He didn't bother to answer the loud man. He already told Minato that he would not be ordered by them. Minato gave a single clap of his hands to gather everyone's attention solely onto him and Naruto. "The person behind me is a solution to the amount of corruption I have seen from this council. This is our new Anbu commander. Oni." Naruto gave a small bow of his head and was glad his face was hidden, or the Uzumaki clan head would see a very heated glare sent her way. "He will only take orders from myself, thus he holds no loyalty to the council, only the Hokage." A few of the civilians gasped at what he said while the ninja side nodded in agreement, having had enough of these greedy freeloaders bribing their way to the top. Naruto stepped forward slightly and stood next to Minato, looking across the room at all that were present. "If I find your actions to be a threat to this village, I will kill you. This is your warning." He looked to Minato, who gave him a nod, telling him two things: that he agreed with how he handled that and that he could leave for now. Naruto once again turning into his wisp of smoke and leaving through the vents like he was never there to begin with. Oni stood in the middle of the Hokage office, still covered by the suit to hide his identity. "Remove your mask." Not for much longer though, as he reached up and pulled the mask away, the form-hugging suit vanishing, leaving him in crimson-red armor, his unkempt black locks falling down his back and going to the top of his legs. His messy hair falling down past his chin across the front, the left side of his face covered while the right side was framed by the locks. Madara's hair except mirrored. His visible eye a vibrant red with three-tone. The Anbu in the room gasped and shakily drew their blades. "Madara!" They dashed forward in an attempt to protect their Hokage. Naruto with little effort parried all the strikes that were thrown at him from the Anbu, even going as far as to not draw a blade of his own. "Stand down, Anbu!" The blonde-haired Kage roared from across his desk. His hands had stayed intertwined throughout the entire event, while Naruto looked forward, an apathetic gaze on his face. "You really do look like your grandfather though. I can see which side you got your looks from." That hurt. It hurt so much that he had to find out on that night rather than from the mouth of his own father. He had forcibly grown somewhat closer to Minato, When you are the leader of his private army and only take orders from him face to face, it is quite hard not to. A locket hung loosely around Naruto's neck. UI was engraved into the silver piece of jewelry. People will ask questions. Minato grimaced at his son's hardened voice. He could not blame him, though the missions Naruto had completed were something inhuman and would really test your sanity. You can turn your Sharingan off now, Naruto. Naruto gave a small nod and his eyes turned back to their normal gold but now held a black Fuma shuriken pattern in the iris. Minato had read the report from his son. His eyes had changed when he unlocked his Sharingan, mutating even their natural look. Looking through my natural eyes feel like a foreign concept now. He cracked his neck to the side and let out a small groan. Now that my 4 years are up, I guess I will be demoted to Junin. Naruto stated. It was what they agreed on, so why would it have changed? Not exactly. You have been given Sannin traveling rights. This means you can travel through any nation we are neutral with, showing only your ninja ID. I honestly think you would be able to do that without the rights, mostly because you look like a clone of Madara. Naruto snorted at what his father was saying. I will be making an announcement in a few moments across the village. Anbu, if you would. They all gave a bow and left the room. Are we going to return to our estranged relationship, father? His eyes gave away no hint of emotion as he continued to just look out of the windows behind the blonde-haired cage. Kushina will be angry. Naruto felt like slapping the man in front of him. After all this time he was still so whipped. But she will have to learn to deal with it. The past 4 years we connected again. You made me remember what it was like to have a son. Thank you, Naruto. He gave a small smirk to his father. She will try to take action against me using the council, we both know this. Minato smiled widely in his seat. She will not. I will be putting my foot down when the meeting is called shortly after the announcement. Minato motioned for Naruto to follow him as they moved through the tower, people going flat against the walls as the pair walked. I do not know whose path they are moving out of, yours or mine. The blonde joked, causing Naruto to crack a smile of sorts as they reached the roof, the sunlight shining down on them. Naruto looked across to where he stood 4 years ago, seeing a new member of Anbu in the very same position. He saw the figure flinch at Naruto's appearance and reach for his blade that was situated on his back. This all happened as Minato's hand slowly moved down to rest on his son's shoulder, putting the Anbu at ease. People of Konoha. The crowd looked up and the duo on the roof heard screaming. I need you all to calm down. Minato tried relax the crowd, but his efforts seemed wasted. Listen to your cage, maggots. The Anbu that had not been in the room now knew who exactly was standing next to the Hokage, their old commander. Naruto's voice froze the people on the ground in their place. Well, that was quite effective. This man beside me is not Uchiha Madara, this is his grandson and my son Uchiha Naruto. Minato had offered him to take the Namikaze name. Naruto politely turned him down, saying that it would cause more trouble than it was worth. He is with me today, so you do not give him the reaction he received when you first took notice of him everywhere he goes in the village. That is all. Minato turned on his feet and moved away from the edge, only taking a few steps before he started laughing. The looks on their faces. It was priceless. Naruto frowned. He also knew where he got his personality from. I think I will take my leave now, father. Minato nodded as he held his sides in from the pain. Naruto shook his head. Sometimes he couldn't believe he was this man's son. He vanished in soundless black flames, appearing outside of his house. It had been so long since he had been here, hopefully Anko had taken care of it. A large tiger stalked out from the bush to his right, moving into sniffing range before letting Naruto pace peacefully. Strange how animals are smarter than humans at times. He figured Anko would either be out or asleep, so he just entered the house, walking through the corridor and coming into the living room, where he was greeted with the sight of a topless Anko shifting back and forth. He could hear male groaning, only making the matter worse. Really, Anko? On my couch? The perplete slowly turned her head at those words and saw a face she hadn't in some time. Wow. 4 years really does change a person. She pulled herself off the man cami. He was so happy to see she was in jeans that were still done up. It wasn't as bad as he had thought. What did I say about one night stands? Naruto growled out as he moved closer to the couch. Anko jumped in front of him and waved her hands defensively. If you came home every now and again, you might actually know that we have been dating for a few months. Where have you been anyway? Naruto just shook his head at the girl, not knowing whether he could actually believe her or not. He would just take her word for it this time though. Now that the job is over, I can legally tell you, I was the Anbu commander. Anko looked like a fish out of water as he finished his sentence. Naruto looked over the back of the couch and saw a scared Chunin laying flat and shivering where he was. When he looked up to see the crimson eyes and what he believed to be a dead man, he promptly passed out. That was actually kind of fun. He looked over to Anko for a few moments. So you and Aruka eh? She nodded hesitantly, answering his question. Well, good for you too. I hope everything works out. She nodded once again, but her eyes slowly steeled. Mister, we are going out drinking tonight. Naruto rose a brow in question to the small girl giving him orders. It was strange to receive them from anyone but his father. He slowly nodded and Anko motioned towards the locket around his neck. Who is you? Flashback. Oni was crouched down on top of a tilted roof. Beside him was Weasel and Anbu he had taken under his wing, so to speak anyway. Are you sure you are up for this? He heard Weasel take in a deep breath before giving a nod. You work your way in, I will work out to you. He saw Weasel snap his head up, about to protest. I will leave Sasuke alive. I am not heartless despite the rumors that go around. Itachi nodded shakily and removed his mask. They are our clan. They deserve to see the faces of the men that killed them so they know who to curse in the afterlife. Naruto nodded and forced the mask away from his face with his chakra, showing his crimson eye to the world. I will see you soon. Good luck, Oni-sama. Itachi vanished in a flock of crows while Naruto stealthily moved to the center of the compound, only a few moments passing since he started. He dropped in through the window of Itachi's room that was left open prior to him leaving tonight. This house posed the biggest risk as it had an alert button to all those that were ready to rebel. He moved to the master bedroom and slipped in without a decibel being made. He was perfectly silent as he sat on the headboard above Fugaku, his katana held in reverse grip, resting a millimeter away from the man's forehead. A single slip and he would wake him. He was tired and already bored with thinking of the many different ways he could kill this traitor. With a single swift movement, he raised the blade an inch away before slamming it straight through the man's skull. He pushed too far and heard the fabric of the pillow underneath his head tear. This caused the woman next to him to stir. She slowly woke and was ready to panic when she saw a sword sticking out of her husband's head. Looking above her, she saw him crouched down with a finger over his lips. She felt a kunai tap against her throat and gulped. I knew your mother, she whispered out with a frown on her face. He removed the finger from his lips and tapped the kunai again, letting her know to continue. Uchiha Izanami, the daughter of Uchiha Madara. Your grandfather, did you not wonder where you got your looks from? The woman smiled a warm and kind smile at him. It confused him deeply. He was here to kill her, yet she was not afraid. She was as beautiful as her name suggested and as kind as they come. Plus, she was your father's first choice. That has to count for something, right? He did take pride in that. Kushina was only able to get her claws into Minato because his mother had passed away. I know why you are here tonight. I know what must be done. In my drawer there is a note that was meant to be for Itachi. I saw you some years ago and suspected that you may have been her son. Looks like I was right. She was making this very difficult for him, being so cheery, telling him everything he wanted to know. I just want you to know, we deserve what you and Itachi are doing. We have wronged you almost as much as we did the village. Naruto narrowed his eyes Makoto as she continued to talk. The clan elders poisoned your mother so she wouldn't live through childbirth. It was their punishment for failing pregnant with a non-Uchiha out of wedlock. She was to die if she went through with the pregnancy. A drop of liquid fall onto Makoto's cheek. It fell from above her. She looked up into Naruto's teary eyes. Your mother said she couldn't kill you not even if her life depended on it. I saw her hold you for the first time with the tears running down her face as her heart rate dropped, pleaded for just a few more seconds as you wrapped your tiny hands around her finger. Naruto was now not the only with tears on his face as a few had started to slip from the Uchiha beneath him. Minato had to leave the room as he couldn't handle watching her die. He took the entire blame on himself and tried to keep you as happy as he could, only it wasn't to last. Well, you know how the rest of the story goes, Naruto. He nodded his head in agreeance. I am sorry, and thank you, Makoto. She bowed her head, watching as the kunai came closer to her skin. He saw the panic in her eyes. Itachi already asked, Sasuke is to be kept alive. She nodded and slowly closed her eyes, waiting for her death. He made it as quick and painless as possible. She shared a bed with a monster. As far as he was concerned, she had suffered enough in her life. He cleaned his kunai and removed his sword from Fugaku's head, flicking the blood on the ground as he moved to the drawers that Makoto had mentioned, finding a note just like she had said. Itachi, I understand what you have to do and know that must be difficult, but please can you grant me 2 last requests? Look after Sasuke but don't coddle him, okay? He doesn't want to be babied anymore, he wants to be more like you, strong and brave. Please find the man named Kurama, Naruto, give him this key and tell him about my deposit box at Konoha's first bank. I thank you for cleaning up the mess your father made, my son. I do not regret having you for even a moment as I think of what is to come, as this is as much my fault as anyone's. Your loving mother, Makoto. Naruto noticed the key and picked it up, folding the note cleanly and storing them both inside his suit for protection. He steeled his nerves. He hoped there was not another house like this. Itachi left the village that night. It housed too many memories for him to remain. Naruto understood what he was talking about and let him go with a head start before reporting him missing as he held the deposit box which was left for him. Opening it, he found a handful of sealed scrolls and a few ninjutsu ones. But out of everything, a silver locket lay in the middle. It stood out and felt like it was calling to him. He gently picked it up and opened it, seeing a photo of his mother and father standing beside each other, happily resting their hands on a small bump on Izanami's stomach. He let a lone tear fall at finally having a family picture. He undid the clasp and placed it around his neck, gently doing it up again as he packed up the contents of the box into a sealing scroll and put the box back where it belonged. Thank you again, Makoto. Flashback end. Anko saw the small tear that fell down his face and wondered if she said something wrong. He gently cleared his throat and opened the locket, showing it to Anko, who gasped. Uchiha Izanami, my mother. Anko looked up at him, and for the first time in her life she could honestly say he was happy. She moved forward to hug him but was met with a hand stopping her. Put some clothes on first. Anko let out a small eep, noticing that her top half was in fact still bare. With her bra and tight shirt now covering her, she moved forward and hugged Naruto. Not as good now that the moment is gone. She mumbled into his chest, causing him to laugh. At least we are both fully clothed now. She nodded and he smiled. It was strange without you around, you know. It's good that you're back. She shone a bright smile up at him. Yeah, they didn't talk too much before he had vanished, but when she thought about it, every time things were about to get really ugly in her life, he had popped up and made them better for a few moments. It's good to be back, Gaki. He smirked as he rested his chin on top of her head and felt her smack her fists into his chest playfully. Want to wake up your boyfriend and we will go for a drink? I could use a few bottles. He chuckled sheepishly and she leant back and laughed at his sheepish look. To Shiko's, Naruto was honestly not surprised she had dragged him there. You really weren't joking. Crowds do part as you move. Anko said in awe, and she hung onto Iruka's arm. Said Chunin was feeling incredibly out of place where he was. It did not take him long at all to make it to the bar. Eyes watched him with extra caution as he sat down, wearing a pair of jeans and a nice long-sleeved t-shirt with said sleeves rolled up to his elbows, the silver locket in place around his neck. Anko, I got your message. Naruto knew that voice, so he turned around to greet them. Sadly, he was so used to having his Sharingan on that he had completely forgotten about turning it on to scare Iruka earlier. The figure jumped forward and pushed Anko and Iruka away from him and held them behind her. How are you even alive, Madara? Naruto tilted his head to the side. He had thought she was the smart one. Hey Madara, turn your Sharingan off. Anko made sure to put air quotations around his grandfather's name. Naruto did just that, his golden eyes coming back into play. He saw Kurenai's jaw slowly lower till it got to the point where it was impossible to fall any further. Ka, she stuttered, causing him to smile towards her. Call me Naruto. Uchiha Naruto. He gave a small bow that moved his hair just enough to see the outline of the seal around his left eye. He raised his head to see Kurenai nodding in shock. Well, how about the first round is on me anyway? Questions were thrown at Naruto left and right about what he had been up to. He answered as best as he was allowed to be. Anko tells me you were the Anbu commander, is that true? Naruto nodded and rolled up his left sleeve, showing the Anbu tattoo with a shuriken behind it, all flowing seamlessly together. Iruka let out a whistle as he looked at it. Well, now I have something to tell my students. Not every day you get to see that, now is it? Naruto just shrugged his shoulders. It isn't every day that one retires and is allowed to talk about it. The rules of Anbu were clear: you were not allowed to talk about Anbu until you were out of Anbu. A small blush was adorning Kurenai's face. The fact that the small crush she had on him 4 years ago never went away did not help the fact that he was incredibly good looking. She could see the definition in his biceps. Not to mention when Anko lifted up his shirt and told Iruka to get ripped like Naruto. It was really not helping at all. Okay, maybe it did make her feel just a little better. Anko is still pretty intense, isn't she? His voice, it sounded so calm and full of life, different to what she would expect from an ex-Anbu. She looked around and met his gold eye with her crimson. His hair moved slightly as he sat next to her, allowing her to see the full seal around his left eye. It looked like tribal markings around his eye. She thought it was just another tattoo. Why do you hide the tattoo around your eye? He flinched a little when she asked. Because it isn't a tattoo. His voice had turned hard from that little question. Kurenai looked down a little. It must be a sensitive subject. I'm sorry. Her head snapped up. She had just been going to say those words when he beat her to them. You didn't know. I shouldn't have acted the way I did. A smile tugged at the corner of his mouth. Kurenai swayed lightly in her seat, the amount of alcohol in her system having finally taken effect. She drunkenly leaned in towards Naruto. Said raven-haired man turned when he felt her hot breath against the side of his neck. Hey Naruto, Hokage-sama wants to see you. Kurenai snapped her head around so fast that her hair almost managed to whip Naruto in the face. Thank you, Asuma-san, I shall take my leave. He said goodbye to the group and passed a large pile of money to Anko. I don't know if I will be coming back tonight. So have fun, my shout. He gave her a small smirk and her eyes widened at the amount he gave her and nodded with passion. She looked over to Kurenai and mouthed the girl a quick, sorry, as Naruto walked out of the door. What do you want, Asuma? The crimson-eyed woman bit, clearly showing she was not pleased with what he had caused to happen. Really, he couldn't have waited like 5 minutes. I just wanted to say that I was stupid and I want you back. Kurenai the bottom of her lip and shook her head from side to side, trying to stop herself from laughing. You're joking, right? When he didn't make any changes to what he said, she continued. You try to force yourself onto me for my first time, then come back to me when I am about to do some I want to. She continued to shake her head at the man. Asuma-san, I believe you should leave. The voice come from behind the bar and a very pissed off bartender was looking the bearded Junin in the eyes. Yeah, I get it. He already has you under his control. He waved offhandedly as he walked away, only to be slapped down to the ground by Anko. Take that back, you pig. Naruto stood in front of his father's desk. He was wearing the same clothes he had been at the bar. Minato smiled at seeing the locket around his son's neck still. Now I will keep this quick. I was wondering if you wanted to be a judge at the Junin exams, they are coming up in 4 months. Naruto gave a small shrug of his shoulders. I don't see any issue with it. Would you like for me to make Anbu recommendations as well? Minato tapped the end of his nose and pointed at his son. I know you would catch on. Naruto smirked at his father. Hokage-sama, a fight has broken out at Toshiko's. Naruto sighed and Minato turned to look at him. I was just there. The blonde nodded in understanding. I will take care of it, father. No need to send any Anbu, I shall make it quick. Minato nodded and Naruto was consumed by black flames appearing at the front of Toshiko's just in time by the looks of things, catching two fists that were about to hit the person standing either side of him. He turned his head to each side and saw Anko and Asuma. His crimson eyes seeing the scared look behind her eyes, he knew how to read people and knew who was at fault. It made it even easier when the man would not make eye contact with him. If the Hokage was in fact not looking for me, I may have suspected that you sent me there to cause trouble, Asuma-san. He tried to blurt out that Anko started it. Be that as it may, Asuma-san, our night was quite delightful until you showed up. Now will you leave quietly or shall I take you to the Anbu cells? The bearded Junin snorted. Of course you would have the Anbu under your thumb. Naruto shook his head in pity at the man. Yes, they will listen to me. But no, I am not controlling them, it is out of respect. Asuma broke free from Naruto's grip and went to take a swing again. The raven-haired Uchiha gently guided Anko away as he blocked Asuma's strike. Attacking me while I was trying to defuse the situation, have you no honor, Asuma? When he got no answer from the man, he took a step back and rested his left hand on his hip, turning his Sharingan off. I will gladly fight you if that is what you wish. For someone to blow your own ego. The smoker Junin raised his fists up to his chest, taking on a slightly more relaxed boxing guard. You're going to need those eyes to keep up. I was a guardian, ya know. Asuma said as he dashed forward. Naruto's hand shot through the man's guard and crushed his windpipe to the level where he wouldn't die before sending a quick backfist to the side of the Mon's skull, causing him to fly off to the side, stumping as he gasped for air before falling over. And I was the Anbu commander. I don't see your point. Asuma's eyes went wide just before he passed out. That is a lesson to all of you. Do not become overconfident in your abilities. It will lead to your downfall. He turned on his feet and headed over to Anko, who was cheering. Iruka was shaking his head at his girlfriend's antics and Kurenai was looking at Naruto strangely. So what did your old man want? Kurenai's head shot back and forth between Anko and Naruto. What, you didn't know? Kurenai quickly shook her head. Father asked me if I would judge the upcoming Junin exams. He saw Anko and Kurenai stiffen. Well, looks like this will be more interesting than I thought. He felt a pair of delicate arms wrap around his chest and looked down to see Kurenai leaning against him. Thank you. I know I should have defended myself, but he outranks and outclasses me. I guess I just didn't have the backbone. Naruto rested a hand on her head. It's all right. He seemed like a. It's all okay now though, right? He asked jokingly. She nodded her head and he looked up at the stars in the sky. Kurenai figured now was as good a chance as any and started leaning up to kiss him, only stopping herself this time. She was nervous and had sobered up a little since before. Hey, you okay, Kurenai? She nodded weakly into his chest, ashamed at not being able to just do what she wanted. Why, yeah, I am just tired. What a stupid lie. Oh, how about I walk you home then? She quickly agreed to the suggestion and walked alongside him out of the bar, leaving Asuma where he fell only to be picked up by a shadow moments later. He is so heavy, Naruto-sama. The figure groaned out to itself before jumping away to the infirmary. We definitely need to get those two together. A certain Perplete cheered while the man next to her agreed. Fail. Naruto called out as he sat in the middle of a clearing in the forest of death. He heard some grumpy mumbling from the one standing behind him as a clone rested a kunai against her throat. How am I even meant to do this? He felt like chuckling but found that may be kind of insulting. Would you believe me if I told you, the water walking exercise? There was no sound from the person behind him, causing a smirk to spread across his face. Are you ready to try again, Anko? He heard her footsteps grow softer before disappearing altogether. With his eyes still closed, he extended his senses, trying to hear her footfalls. With his eyes still closed, his right arm snapped up and his fingers grasped her wrist. There is too much emotion behind your strike. I know this exam means a lot to you, Anko, but believe me, you need to be able to detach yourself from emotion while on higher tier missions. He slowly opened his eyes and gave her a soft smile, causing her to blush. Stop doing that, Baka. That is exactly what I was talking about, Gaki. He chimed in, waving a finger on his still free hand back and forth like he was scolding a child. Your infiltration skills are almost Junin level. The rest is still sitting at high Chunin. She frowned as he spoke. But we still have over 3 months to bring those up to speed. I will help train you for the exam. Her eyes brightened while his darkened. She is going to hate me when all this is done. He inwardly mused. He was not wrong. 2 weeks had passed in the blink of an eye for the pair. Anko lay panting on the ground while Naruto looked like he had just walked out of the house to start the day. You are improving in leaps and bounds, Anko. When was the last time you had someone instruct you? His question seemed innocent enough, to him at least. It would have been, before I left with Orochimaru. She said between pants, and Naruto nodded his head. To raise from genin to this level of skill, all on your own no less, it quite impressive in the amount of time that was allotted. I believe if someone had have taken the time to train you when you were younger, you could have been hailed a prodigy. Anko looked up to meet his golden smiling eyes. She was one of the few people who could say she was able to picture Madara smiling. I believe we are done for the day. Anko went to pick herself up but found she was pushed to the floor and a hand shot down, hovering over her chest. She was about to scream pervert until she saw the green glow around his hand. When did you learn how to heal? Naruto looked up at her for such a silly question. I was Anbu for nearly 14 years, 4 of those spent as the commander. All Anbu have basic medic training. That was the first time she had heard how long he had really been in Anbu. It had made no sense when he had told her he was the leader, as she had never known him to have been in Anbu. Things started to fall in place and she looked at him in shock. Oni? She questioned weakly, to which he nodded. Oni had been the only male Anbu to look out for her when she had been younger. Wow. You have looked after Mai for how many years now? Naruto mulled the thought over in his head. Close to 10, I would say. In a way that makes you like a brother, yeah. Naruto could not see the logic behind that but shrugged nonetheless. From now on you shall be Oni-chan. His face turned to a deadpan expression. That was so lame, Gaki. Are you even trying anymore? Anko gave a huff from where she was sitting as he finished healing her minor injuries. You should be fine to keep training in about half an hour if that is what you want to do. She nodded and gave her thanks before walking away, leaving Naruto sitting in the clearing. A large white tiger came and sat in front of him, causing him to raise his brow. What are you up to, buddy? The large cat gave a big yawn and tilted its head to the side, looking at the black-haired man. Well, I am a little hungry. Want to come grab something to eat? The large cat stood and moved to stand beside Naruto, his back coming past the mont's hip. Naruto was not some small man either. He stood at a decent height of 6 feet 2. This was just one large cat. Anko and Kurenai were panting as they stood across from one another. The crimson-eyed genjutsu user was impressed at how much Anko had improved. Finally putting some effort behind your training? She questioned, causing the perplete to frown. Always did. I finally have someone to teach me now though. Kurenai wasted no time in questioning who. Naruto, of course. The way she said it made it sound like Kurenai had asked a stupid question. Does he know genjutsu? She questioned. Anko thought about it for a moment before shrugging, not actually being able to remember him ever using it. I do. A voice calmly stated from next to her ear, causing her body to shiver as Naruto's body was slowly revealed, along with an incredibly large tiger. Naruto saw Anko looking at his new friend in question. Meet Tai Long. It looked like the cat shrugged at the name. Okay, from now on you can be Tai Long. Anko nodded dumbly while the tiger moved over to Kurenai and forced her to pat him. Well, you seem quite friendly, Tai. Kurenai turned her head to look at Naruto with question evident in her eyes. Would you be able to help me train for the exams as well? Naruto gave a small shrug from where he stood. I will help out when I am free, which seems to be quite a bit at the moment. He chuckled at the end while rubbing the back of his head. Anyway, I should leave you two to it. Me and Tai were just on our way back home after lunch. Anko looked at the tiger then back at Naruto. You just walked him into the village and no one questioned you. Naruto looked at the girl like she was an idiot for a few moments. Gaki, not only do I look like a carbon copy of my grandfather, I am the Hokage's eldest. People kind of just turn a blind eye when I do things like that, plus he is friendly enough. If he did get spooked and try to attack someone, I just cast a genjutsu over him. Can't have the villagers getting hurt when they don't deserve it. Kurenai nodded and looked to Naruto. Are you free at the moment? He gave her a small nod. Do you think we could? You know. Anko looked at Kurenai. It was clear her friend was not well versed with how to talk to men. I can help you out if that's what you are asking. She nodded with a slight hue on her face. Can you perform a genjutsu? She nodded and brought her hands up in front of her body to channel chakra, holding the ram seal with them both, the area surrounding him turning into the Uchiha district, causing him to frown before quickly swiping his hand and dispelling the illusion. He sent a small glare across at Kurenai. She hung her head down in shame. I shouldn't have used that illusion. I'm sorry. Demonic scenery has the ability to make the captive see an area that brings them fear. Naruto knew that genjutsu well enough. The scene around them all changed while Naruto had not moved a muscle, or so it seemed. The clearing was covered in a dark mist blocking out all their vision. Did you see what I did? He questioned, letting the illusion fall from around them. Both gave a small shake of their heads. A simple trick that can be used to catch your opponents off guard. Kurenai tried to cast the illusion again, but with one hand this time. The illusion took much longer to cast this time, and he saw a small sheen of sweat form on her forehead, glistening in the afternoon sun. With a swipe of his hand he dispelled it again, letting the district fade away into the air. Now hold a genjutsu over the hand, channeling the chakra. He motioned to his left hand that was down by his side, hanging like one would if they were standing lazily. She felt his illusion creep into place, his hand never moving a muscle. Again he quickly dispelled the genjutsu and looked at Kurenai. The art of illusions is about tricking your opponent. If you mix this in with an evasive style of combat, you could trick your opponent into thinking you are a bunshin. The raven-haired woman let her eyes widen at the prospect, having never thought of something like that. Meaning, while they are distracted looking for the real you, you could strike from right in front of them. Naruto nodded at her question and watched as she applied the henge on her hand and tried again. She was struggling to cast the illusion while maintaining the genjutsu over her hand, while at the same time trying to cast demonic scenery onto Naruto. It took some time and Kurenai had started to pant. The genjutsu around her hand was shaky, but she had managed to cast the intended one onto Naruto. It will take some time, but once you get the hang of that, we can move on to holding a chain of genjutsu while casting a multiple layered one. Kurenai started to go pale and started to sway where she stood. Naruto closed the distance and put her down on the ground gently. You should have just told me you were running low. We could have taken a break, ya know. There was a small amount of worry in his voice, something Kurenai found both thrilling and heart-wrenching. I didn't want to waste your time. He looked at her for a few moments before laughing softly. Don't worry about me, Kurenai, worry about yourself first. Genjutsu, while not the most physically strenuous, it does put the most strain on your mind out of the three types. If you start feeling tired or uneasy, you should be careful about what you attempt. That was Genjutsu 101. She felt slightly angry that he was reciting things to her that she had already been told. When she looked at him, it wasn't like he was trying to lecture her, it was more like he was trying to protect her. She leaned her head onto his shoulder. He passed it off as her being exhausted. He reached in behind his loose shirt and pulled out a scroll, scribbling quickly along it, filling it with lines upon lines of information, causing her eyes to widen. He finished and tied the ribbon around the outside into a nice bow before dropping it into her lap. Inside of it are a list of tips and tricks I have found that help me with genjutsu. I don't know if they will do the same for you, but it can't hurt. She inhaled deeply through her nose, taking in his scent. It was strange, but she knew it just where from. Strangely, she was drawn to thoughts of the flowers in her apartment. Belladonna. That's what it was. Such a strange yet appealing scent. The plant berries have a somewhat sweet taste to them but are incredibly toxic. When she thought about Naruto, it seemed fitting, a sweet man who was incredibly deadly. A sigh escaped her lips as she continued to lean against him. Earth to Kurenai, he chimed out, trying to get her attention. Huh, she stumbled out, focusing on his face as it was incredibly close to hers at the moment, causing her to blush. I asked if you were feeling okay. She looked into his bright golden eyes, feeling them bore into her. She rested a hand on his chest, causing her blush to intensify. I am feeling a little lightheaded. Is it okay if we just sit here for a little? She asked, looking completely innocent of trying anything. Yeah, that sounds cool. He replied, giving her a friendly smile. Maybe she isn't as clueless as I thought. Anko mumbled to herself from nearby. Tai Long laying on the ground next to her, the tiger stretched out and gave a big yawn. Well, if you insist, Tai, I am sure we can go get some dango. The tiger looked at her for a few moments before doing an action that looked like shaking its head and following after the perplete, making sure to keep her out of trouble. Anbu years. As the title suggests, this will be a little section at the end of the chapters for some time, showing snippets of what Naruto got up to during his Anbu years. I hope you enjoy. A groan slipped from the young boy's mouth. Having been accepted into the Anbu at the age of 8, he was definitely the youngest recruit. He was currently wearing a tracksuit while his face was covered by a plain white mask. A katana tanto sitting in the middle of his back as he slowly pulled himself up from the ground and faced down at the Oni masked Anbu before him. He raised his hand up to the tanto and clenched it tightly, feeling the spark of life, as he called it, resounding within the blade and his body, melding them together to work as a perfect instrument. He clashed his tanto against the karma the Oni held in reverse grip. The older male quickly knocking Naruto off to the side, only for it to fade away as it hit the ground. A genjutsu, but I wonder what part of it was. Our clash, are you vanishing? Was I fighting the real you or a clone? The man mused, bringing his karma behind him and blocking the tanto strike from Naruto. You hold too much emotion in your movements. I could feel your ki giving away your position, Gaki. Naruto smirked right before he blew up in the Anbu's face, sending him back a few feet with a crack running down his mask. The man quickly waved a hand over the crack and Naruto saw the mask repair itself. The Oni shall not show its face until it makes its final move. He tilted his head to the side and Naruto felt a strange sensation just below his ribs. He moved his hand to the area. Damp. He muttered himself, bringing his hand up. He wiped it across his once porcelain white mask, leaving 4 long red lines running across it. He put his hand back to where the wound was and found the kunai, removing it and tossing it to the ground as his hand glowed red for a moment, slamming it into the wound. Oni had to watch as the boy burnt the gaping hole closed. With the wound now closed, Naruto painfully strode forward, attempting to strike the man. Oni sidestepped the first strike, causing Naruto to smirk beneath his mask as he swiped out with his blood-covered hand, spraying the liquid over the man's eye holes. The black-haired child pivoted on his feet and brought the tanto back around, stopping it just as it nicked the man's skin, feeling a kunai pressed up against his throat. You are a real demon, my boy. Welcome to Anbu. Oni removed the kunai from Naruto's throat and the boy dropped to his knees, still holding his own blade in place, panting heavily before letting it fall to the ground beside him. He felt his mask being moved from his face, but he was simply too exhausted to do anything about it. Moments later, another was placed on his face. From this moment on, you shall be Oni. Naruto strained his body to nod at what the man said before everything faded to black. Naruto groaned as he flopped down onto his bed. He was beyond exhausted, having just finished reporting into the Hokage after finishing his latest mission. He stretched out as he yawned, his hands traced along something frilly. His crimson eyes snapping open and looking at what he had felt. A black frilly thong was laying on his bed next to a pair of jeans, a bra and a tight top. These aren't mine. He looked at the garments with an aura of confusion surrounding him. He doubted that they were Anko's. She knew his room was off limits. During this time he hadn't noticed that the shower was running, that was until it stopped. The soft pitter-patter of water hitting the ground as someone stepped onto the tiles in his ensuite. He heard the door slowly open and turned to see who it was. His crimson eyes burning what he saw into his mind as she stood there frozen, a towel currently covering her eyes. Naruto, showing just how much he knew what to do in this situation, looked dumbly at her. "What are you doing in my room?" Her body froze, her hands still in the towel wrapped around her hair cover her eyes. Naruto. It was very quiet in the room. Kurenai could not think of anything more awkward right now. It seems as if Kami was testing her though. "Hey Kurenai, are you? Oh hi Naruto, I didn't know you would be home so soon." Naruto turned his eyes to Anko, who stood in the door frame connecting his room to the rest of the house. "You didn't get my message then?" From the corner of his eyes he saw Kurenai tighten her grip on the towel. Anko shook her head. I guess it was an accident then. Well, I will leave you to get changed." He pushed himself from the bed and took a slow step forward, stopping right next to Anko's ear, leaning in and whispering into her ear. "You shouldn't lie, Gaki, it's unbecoming." Anko stiffened as he walked past, closing the door behind him. The small gust of wind that was created from the action causing the towel covering Kurenai's body to fall from her frame. Slowly removing the towel from her head, you could see that her cheeks had become the same color as her eyes. Said eyes were wide and filled with horror. Well, at least he wasn't in the room when that happened. Anko pointed to the glistening body of Kurenai, who nodded dumbly. So I have been sleeping in his bed for the past week, correct? Anko nodded her head thoughtfully, hiding the smile that wanted to burst free. "And my apartment is still being repaired, correct?" Once again Anko nodded. "So what am I to do?" Anko took her thinking position. It was not needed though, she had already thought of this from the moment she read Naruto's letter, saying he would be home today. A smirk started spreading across her face, slowly walking towards the door and poking her head out, seeing Naruto pawing at Tai Long, who wanted to be left alone. "Hey Naruto." The man and Tiger tilted their head to the side comically. "Yes. I was wondering if Kurenai could stay tonight. Her apartment is undergoing repairs after a small fire." Anko had an innocent look on her face, while Naruto looked at her with confusion on his face. "Of course, you need not ask." Kurenai burst through the door, causing Anko to gasp and Naruto to freeze. "Are you sure I wouldn't be imposing?" Kur-chan. "Why yeah Anko. You are kind of in front of Naruto." An eep was heard and the raven-haired beauty vanished. Well, that was strange. Naruto nodded at Anko, his Sharingan blazing. That creamy white skin would forever be burned into his memory. Naruto frowned as he looked at the girl he saw as a sister of some sort. "You," he started before taking a deep breath. "You shouldn't get involved too much. I like you guys, but I don't think you can beat my curse." He frowned deeper and stroked Tai. The tiger seemed to growl a little. "Stupid ninja." Naruto slowly moved his hand away from the tiger as it spoke. "I didn't say stop, I just called you stupid." Anko's sweat dropped. A talking tiger was laying in their living room. "I agree with him to a point, Anko-san. Do not push Uchiha. So you weren't what you appeared to be." Naruto mused out loud at Tai. "And you are." The large tiger bit back. "Touché." Anko looked between the two as they started at one another, golden eyes bouncing off burning red. "I must ask, why are you here, Tai Long?" The tiger grumbled at the question before standing and stretching its back out. "Funny you actually managed to guess my real name. Nonetheless, I am here under orders. Seems even hidden away. You have caught the eyes of some interesting people. I am here because of their interest in you." Naruto brought a hand up and rested it against his seal. It was burning. Being hidden away from the world, it is something that is hard to explain. until you are in the position, isn't that right, Naruto? He shot the tiger a look that silenced him. Naruto. I am fine, Anko. Tai Long has just made a mistake, he assumed something that was not true. She nodded hesitantly, slowly leaving the room. Once out of earshot, Naruto looked down at his hands. The world is locked away from me, to protect them. So immersed in what he had said, he failed to notice the door to his bedroom slowly close. Dinner was in one word, quiet. No one really knew what to say. What was there to say anyway? Sorry. Oops. Naruto was putting the final piece of meat from his plate into his mouth, when a knock sounded at his door. He excused himself and went to answer. His father, rounded by 4 Anbu, walked in. Naruto, I have something to tell you. Naruto nodded hesitantly. After your last medical report, you are relieved of duty until further notice. I am sorry, but it is for your health. The black-haired man nodded dumbly as he looked at his hands. Are you not going to say something? Naruto just shook his head. What is there to say, father? Minato grimaced and apologized again as he left, causing Naruto to wave it off. It is how it was meant to be. Little did he know that those parting words would haunt his father for years to come. Naruto, are you okay? Anko's quiet voice broke the silence that had come to pass since Minato's departure. With a sad smile, Naruto turned to her, his Sharingan turned off and his patterned golden eyes boring across the table. As I said, it is how it was meant to be. I shall be fine, Yaki. Anko groaned while Naruto left the room, coming back with a blanket and pillow and putting himself on the couch. Please do not be up too much longer, I still have some things to do tomorrow. He sounded so defeated, Kurenai felt her heart quake at his words. Tai Long put himself to bed a few feet away from Naruto, his head down and eyes closed, as he listened to the world around him. Naruto, you don't have to move out of your bed for me. She tried to reason. Kurenai, there are many things I am not, chivalrous is not one of those. Then share it with me. She stuttered out, causing Anko's eyes to go wide while Naruto looked confused. Is that okay? Kurenai looked at Anko for a few moments, who was actually too shocked to react before giving a shy nod to the man. I shall see you when you come to bed then. The way he said that made her heart flutter. Sharing a bed with Naruto, thoughts flew through her mind so fast, that she could barely see them before she was assaulted by a new one. She saw him stand and leave the room, wanting nothing more than to chase after him. Anko now collected her thoughts and looked at the blushing Kurenai before winking, moving to the door as Iruka would be coming around soon. Be careful with him, yeah. I don't want you wearing him out on the first night. Kurenai was now eligible to be called the Scarlet Princess. You do know he can more than likely hear us, right? Anko shrugged her shoulders. He already knows how I am, Kurenai. He accepted me before even you. You are the one that has something to prove. There was a knocking at the door and Anko turned on her feet, opening it for Iruka, embracing him in a hug. Something to prove, Kurenai thought. Anko, thank you. The perplet looked back at the Raven Beauty and gave a smirk. Anything for you too. Kurenai shuffled into the bedroom. Naruto was still up, his Sharingan eyes blazing as he read over a scroll. Taking a peek, she saw it was focused around ceiling, not exactly her area, but even she could tell he was looking across high-level things, making small notes as he went along. A small book was brought out quickly, a strange symbol printed on its front. Naruto flicked through the pages like a madman, trying to find what he was looking for. Finally finding it, he exclaimed and put the book up near the scroll. Kinshi ser ta toshi. Forbidden City, he mumbled out, drawing a quick pattern on a spare piece of paper. Naruto smirked and Kurenai felt herself become warm, even though it wasn't directed at her. His expression seemed to change the atmosphere of the room. Can we talk for a bit before we sleep? I want to know you a little better. He rose a brow and slowly turned to her, his eyes flicking back to their golden form for a moment. He rolled up the scroll and packed away his book. He frowned and laid down, facing the ceiling as Kurenai stripped out of her jeans and jumped into bed. What do you want to know? She paused, hadn't thinking she would get this far. She needed something. Anything right now. What's with your eyes? Wanting to slap herself, she let out a large sigh. You don't have to answer that. She saw a small shrug from the black-haired man. My golden eyes, well, I got them when I obtained my stage 3 lightning affinity. She gasped as he remained quiet. Getting to stage 2 in an affinity was easy enough. Stage 3, well, you had best be prepared to enjoy a stay in the hospital, at best. My instructor put me out in the field during a thunderstorm, explained what was going to happen, then left. I was alone, completely, no orders, no rules, just knowing what was to come. It was a new experience, something that shook me completely. He took a deep breath, watching as Kurenai listened intently to his every word. I became a lightning rod. For 5 minutes I became my own person, lightning flowing through my veins. I felt reborn. The experience ended too quickly for my liking. My instructor, surprised that I lived, slapped this seal around my eye. Father said my eyes used to be so full of hope. After that moment I became a savage, living on a chain, being unleashed in a direction the village didn't want to see again. He paused, pulling his hair up to show the seal around his eye. Kurenai took careful notice. It looked like the one he had just been studying. What does it do? He stiffened for a moment, looking at her with his red eyes. Long story short, it's a leash. He frowned and rolled over, turning the lights out. It was clear he no longer wanted to talk. Respecting his wishes, she rested her hands on her stomach, the ever-tempting smell of belladonna reaching her nose. Things finally started to click for her, noticing that she was in fact in the same bed as her crush, inside his room, within cuddling range. She attempted to move forward, but a growl from the foot of the bed froze her. Sorry, I thought I saw something that I shouldn't. Tai Long held firm in his belief. Do not push Uchiha. Flashback. Naruto stood in the middle of the kitchen, his hands behind his back as his flak jacket stood out proud. His father was proud. At the age of 6 his son was Chunin. It was something unheard of. His golden eyes shone as he looked at the person standing in front of him. She was physically beautiful, physically. He was sent down to the ground, his cheek stung, an emotionless mask in place. He stood back up, standing just as he did before. This proves it, you really do take after your mother. As much as he wanted to, Naruto could not strike out. Naruto was brought to his knees in pain, trying his best to steal his emotions. My seal won't be broken, remember this, I will not let you bring any harm to my daughter. A small bump was on the redhead's stomach, she rubbed it tenderly. I will keep you away from her. Naruto frowned, causing the woman to smile, finally breaking through his mask. You are not my real mother, you will always be father's second choice. His words struck her cold, his footsteps echoing as he moved to the door only to collapse in pain. I am no one's second choice, your father loved me first, your whore of a mother used her Sharingan on him. Fighting through the pain, Naruto slowly stood, his golden eyes slowly turning to their red with 3 tome in each. He channeled the chakra needed to his eyes for the genjutsu only for his seal to activate again. Funny really, you care so much about your sister that you can't harm me. She snorted. Let me fix that. Intensifying the pain that racked his body, she brought out a sealing kit. A few brush strokes later she moved away. Everything you love, of non-Uzumaki decent, shall die by your hand. This is my curse to you, Uchiha. She spat his clan name out, like it was mud. It's funny, you, the Red Death, is scared of a child. How the mighty have fallen. If my mother could see you now, I bet she would be laughing, you taking what was hers only after she died. Pathetic. Just like a Uzumaki, you hide behind paper and ink claiming to be better. The reality is, everyone knows your clan is scared to fight. Scared to get their hands dirty doing real shinobi work. You are like your clan, pathetic and scared. He breathed out as his seal pushed him lower to the ground, making him almost bow to her. I thought Uchiha were meant to be smart. Why do you keep fighting even though you have lost? Naruto slowly smirked. You don't even know your own husband, is he just some meal ticket to you? Father never gives up. No matter how bad things may look, he always finds a way, always. He repeated. A foot came down on his head, pushing it roughly against the ground. Then why is your mother still dead? Hate me if you want. This is the first real encounter of the two. More will be explained in further flashbacks. Present. Naruto harshly awoke. He hated that dream, his hand instantly going to his seal. That was the day he lost his normal vision. Without the Sharingan, he would be almost blind. The feedback from the genjutsu crashing against the muscles in his eyes, it was simply too much. He burnt them out. Now he could see outlines of people and their chakra levels. That was it. His Sharingan became sharper. It seemed the chakra feedback had evolved them somehow. They required almost none to be kept on. It came as both a blessing and a curse. Chose a life of darkness, or a life you can never forget. Everything he saw with his Sharingan was burnt into his mind. This was the reason why he could not look at the beauty in his bed. Every time he did, he could see her creamy white skin, subtle droplets running down her legs while her hair framed her beautiful face. Threads of chakra flew around the room as Naruto scribbled in a note. It took him less than 15 minutes to get ready, including his shower and morning coffee. His grandfather's armor on, he strode out of his home, Tai Long following his trail. His golden eyes taking in the sketchy scenery around him, small traces of chakra hanging in the air, residue, such a waste. What are we doing today, Naruto? The raven-haired man thought about it for a few moments. What could he do? He froze in his step. Something I should have done so long ago. Tai tilted his head to the side, following Naruto nonetheless. Anko woke not too much longer after Naruto did. Walking quietly through the house, she made it to his room, gently opening his door so as to not disturb them. You really are scared of letting her in. He was gone. Not surprising really. She felt sorry for Kurenai. Her friend really had picked the hardest person to get close to. You know, Naruto hates people using his things. Maybe you do have a chance. Anko turned on her feet and walked out the door, closing it behind her. Thank you, Anko. She immersed herself deeper into his sheets, taking in his scent. She heard the crumbling of paper, groggily opening her eyes and looking at the note. Kurenai, I am sorry, last night. I guess what I am trying to say is, I find it hard, dealing with and seeing people as humans. Normally they are a target, easy to kill, easy to forget about. When emotions come into play, it changes the field to some landscape I do not understand. Anko once told me, just about everything can be settled over sake. I guess that was me trying to ask if you wanted to get a drink later. Naruto, you don't have to be sorry. She mumbled, looking at the note, a strange symbol in the top corner. Naruto's feet paused. 2 years, it seemed like only yesterday. Tai Long stood next to him, not daring to move forward. Naruto would need his time. Itachi, did we do the right thing? The streets were cold and lifeless, his red eyes taking every detail in. He caused this. He would not forget. The small pitter-patter of children's feet used to be heard. Now there was only a breeze, flicking his hair around in the wind. Tai Long, a small was heard from the tiger. Is it evil to kill a corrupt clan for a corrupt village? Am I evil for following orders? Sitting on his hind legs, Tai Long put a paw up against Naruto, causing the man to look down. A evil man will not question what he does. That does not mean you are a good man, but you are not evil. In the larger picture, there is no difference between the two. For example, a young girl steals medicine from a story. Is she good or bad? Instantly Naruto replied, it is a crime, thus she should be punished. The tiger shrugged its shoulders and led Naruto slightly further into the compound. But what if I was to tell you, it was to save her sick grandmother? What if I told you the store owner was corrupt, charging much more than should be possible? Naruto was about to answer. He paused mid-step and looked at Tai Long. To commit crimes for someone else, is that what it means to care about someone else? Tai tilted his head from side to side. Yes and no, but that is not what I was getting at. What you were getting at I cannot answer. I do not feel strongly enough to be able to do something like that. The large white cat nodded his head. At least you are honest. Well, even if you aren't, you think you are. Naruto looked at him for a moment. You were given orders, kill all Uchiha. Yet 3 of you live. Why is that? A Fuma shuriken pattern quickly formed in his red eyes. Defensive about that night are we? I don't even know what to feel, call, or do about what happened. Should I mourn? Should I be happy that I finished the mission? Should I be disgusted for killing my kin? I doubt you would enjoy me calling you kin slayer. The primal growl from Naruto was enough of an answer for the tiger. This is something you will have to deal with, don't you have a promise to keep? Naruto rose a brow and turned to the tiger, he was gone. Am I going insane? People say they can see the dead wandering here, I cannot, what do you think about this area? He turned on his feet and the small boy gasped. Do you want to grab something to eat? The small raven-haired child eyed him suspiciously. I have failed so far in my promise, I have come to make it up to you. Who are you? Naruto smirked, showing his red eyes to the child. My name is Uchiha Naruto. I knew your mother, as she helped me a lot, I guess I just wanted to help her out in some way. Sasuke was transfixed on the man before him. I have heard of you. Itachi spoke of you a few times, said you were like a beast, holding the world in its jaw, confused on whether to cherish it or destroy it. Naruto picked up on the way he spoke of Itachi. It seemed the boy had a strong hatred for him, that was something he would have to work on. I gave your brother a choice, I will give you the same. Sasuke looked like he was ready to turn him down right away. He bit down on his anger and nodded slowly to the man. Would you like to learn from me? When we have free time, of course. Sasuke rose a brow. What can you do? Naruto smirked. Sasuke lay panting on the ground, looking up at the man before him. Not a single speck of dirt lay on his red armor. I have one condition. Sasuke huffed and nodded, too tired to do anything else. Use what I teach you, to protect, not for revenge. Anger flickered through Sasuke's eyes and Naruto pinned him down without any effort. Look what that path did to your brother. Forgive me, Itachi. Naruto lied to the boy's face, his eyes widening. I will not become my brother. Naruto moved off of him, extending a hand out and helping the boy up from the ground. Good. Meet me at the gates to training ground 44, tomorrow after class. The boy nodded and Naruto put an awkward hand on top of Sasuke's head. Both pivoted and left, not speaking another word, Naruto leaving feeling better than he had in a long time, while Sasuke had been left with a lot to think about. Kurenai walked across the ground, not even the grass talked of her passing. Her kunai held in reverse grip, placing it against the back of his neck. You failed. His voice sounded out, shocking her. Spinning on her feet, she saw him sitting on a patch of grass. She walked right by. No, she moved around that patch of grass. She could see the marks of her feet, they curved around where he sat. I felt like I was walking in a straight line. Naruto, with his eyes closed, smirked. Try again. Kurenai watched him closely, taking her steps slowly, trying her best to stay straight. She stopped in front of him. Turning around slowly and seeing the curved path. Genjutsu, making someone believe what is not really there. I won't cast the second part of it, try again. Kurenai nodded and moved back to where she had stood earlier. You haven't eaten yet, right? Why would that matter? Naruto had still to open his eyes, he looked to be meditating, she knew he was doing something, just what was it? You will see in a moment. She went to take a step but fell to her knees, the world was spinning. Smells like pancakes. Kurenai looked up and tried to glare, quickly putting her head down, she felt sick. When you can beat this technique, or figure out how it works, I will help you design a new genjutsu. She looked at him in shock, completely forgetting about what happened last time. Can why you turn it off? It is, your body will just take time to readjust. Naruto wondered if she would pull anything from that hint. He moved to help Kurenai, stretching his arm out to comfort her. A burning sensation dug in around his left eye. He slowly retracted his arm. Kushina. He snarled, causing Kurenai to look up at him. Naruto. The worry in her voice, it pained him. Sorry. It was nothing, I shall wait for you to recover. He sat down in the grass, closing his eyes. Everything you love shall die by your hand. Naruto looked to be off in his own world. Kurenai reached forward slowly. His hand quickly shot up and clutched tight around her wrist. His eyes suddenly went wide and he let go. Sorry. You say sorry too much. He looked up and met her ruby red eyes, unable to draw himself away. Thankfully he didn't have to, she hadn't fully recovered yet. Flashback. Itachi was on the ground, a pool of his own vomit around him. He wiped his mouth with his sleeve, looking up and meeting the gaze of his veteran partner. That is what I was feeling. Naruto nodded to the boy. I think I have it. Naruto looked down at the boy, curious. It's the power of suggestion. I know its weakness, even if I am wrong about what it does. Naruto rose a brow. You can't move while using it. A small smirk formed across his face. I don't have to. Itachi looked down. The vomit around him was gone. Before him sat Naruto with a kunai resting against his throat. I can make you come to me, without you even noticing. Naruto smiled. It was a normal enough smile, but it shook Itachi to the core. He was nothing before this man, why was he called a prodigy? He gulped nervously as the kunai was still in place, not moving a millimeter. Did you enjoy? Kami's voice. Itachi froze in place as more and more Narutos started appearing around him, each holding an Itachi at knife point. Answer me this, Itachi. If you think you are here, where are you really? The boy looked around. It was scary, not knowing if he was in fact him, or what Naruto just wanted him to think was him. This genjutsu is confusing, the teen stated, causing Naruto to chuckle as he pulled the kunai away. Flashback end. Uchiha-sama. Naruto groaned. It seemed that Asuma was more than happy to spread around the word that he was the previous Anbu commander. He nodded as the Anbu looked at him from a kneeling position. Kurenai was able to stand, barely, but she was able to stand. What would you ask of me? He groaned out, his eyes widened a tinge. He knew this Anbu, how could he forget that purple hair? Hokage-sama needs you right away. Naruto stood and looked over to Kurenai. Neko, can you please watch over Kurenai until she is okay? I showed her Kami's voice. Neko flinched but nodded quickly. You didn't give her the same test you did us, right? Naruto smirked and vanished in black flames. What did he do to you guys? The purpled-haired Anbu laughed nervously. It ended with us all pointing swords at one another, thinking it was him. He was happily sitting upside down on the roof, watching. That was a tale in chakra control and capacity. Having a room full of Anbu at his whim, what a scary thought. Naruto appeared in his father's office. Instantly he wanted to go back home. Uzumaki-san, Hokage-sama. He bowed politely. You called him. Kushina spat, causing Minato to frown. Give me the name of someone more qualified, I will happily go get them myself. She looked between Minato and Naruto. Yes, he knew he would definitely be sleeping on the couch for some time. There is only one reason you would have me called here with Natsumi present. Minato nodded, confirming his suspicion. Are you sure you want to do this? Better question, have you asked Natsumi if she wants to do this? A blonde girl slowly walked out from behind Kushina. Naruto crouched down to her level, showing her his golden eyes. Will this keep the demon away? Naruto flinched at her wording and looked over to Kushina, who was smirking. I cannot make him go away, but I can show him that you are the boss. He cracked a small smile. Her chakra was so bright and happy. Looking at himself, he was a raging hurricane of emotions. I accept then, do what you must. Naruto nodded. Keep that up and he won't have a chance. She shone a bright smile at this friendly stranger. Father, I am ready. Rest your hand on my back, you are coming with me. Minato nodded and formed the ram seal, placing his free hand on his son's back as he sat down. Natsumi picked up on what he said. Father. Naruto looked at her strangely for a moment. It does not matter at the moment. Please sit down. The girl quickly responded and sat, crossing her legs and resting her hands in her lap. Now look into my eyes, this will sting a little. She nodded as Naruto put his right hand on her forehead, his eyes flashing red, three worlds going black. Naruto knew this place all too well, he was the first to recover and help the other two up. Both panting heavily, Naruto turned to face the small blonde. Welcome to your mind. She looked at him for a few moments, nodded her head slowly, honestly she had no clue what was going on. This feels strange. The comment made Naruto laugh. So it should. This is not your head, the only reason I am used to it as well, you will find out soon enough anyway. Minato nodded as did Natsumi, following the black-haired man as he trudged through the sewer. You. The fox screamed as Naruto came into its vision. Are you going to be stubborn, or will you be a good fox, and listen to what I have to say? He heard the snarling behind the cage and walked through the bars, both Natsumi and Minato telling him to stop. The large beast raised its claw to strike Naruto down. He frowned and rose his hand before vanishing and appearing on the fox's head, slamming the hand down, lightning shocking the fox, causing it to growl. Stop being a pain. For a demon lord, your behavior is unbecoming. The fox started to thrash around and Naruto shocked it again. Is this how you dealt with me the first time? Naruto shook his head at the fox's question. I used my eyes to trick it into giving me its chakra, forcing it to kill itself. Now will you listen to what I have to say? The fox stopped moving and glared at Naruto. Kurama. Naruto smirked at the shocked look on his face. I am going to get off of your head, when I do we will talk. If you try to attack me, I will trap you in a hell you cannot escape from. Natsumi and Minato watched shocked as Naruto flipped off the fox's head, landing softly on the ground, the great beast lowering itself to his level. We are the same. The fox snorted until Naruto lifted up his left bang. A gift from my stepmother, I love it so much I take it everywhere I go. I don't need your sarcasm. The fox spoke half-heartedly. Honestly, it was good to talk to someone, even if they were an Uchiha. Having the world locked away from us, anyway I will make this quick. Natsumi is the boss, if you behave I will teach her a way to let you roam around, in the world in a civilian body. The fox was about to roar at Naruto. There are two other ways I can do this, neither are pleasant. Do you want to accept the one that will give you freedom if you behave? Pushy Ninjan. If the blonde is anything like you, I will accept. Naruto smirked a little. I don't know if she is like me, this is my first time meeting her, but do anything that will harm my little sister, you will be begging that death will claim you. Naruto's voice was cold enough to cut through steel. The fox narrowed his eyes but saw Naruto change his. Madara. That old man had a kid. A daughter, I am her son. The fox raised a brow. Naruto opened the locket around his neck and showed the fox. Sorry for your loss. And I yours, I am here if you need to talk. Kurama nodded. It was strange, talking to someone who knew everything about you. Natsumi. Father, you can come here if you wish. Naruto saw the heated glare Kurama put on as he saw the man who put him there. Natsumi bowed to the fox as did Minato. Naruto found this incredibly odd. Can I get a new ninjan? Kurama looked to Naruto for his answer. The raven-haired man stifled a laugh while little Natsumi was trying her best not to blow up. You heard your brother, my name is Kurama. Natsumi gave a light glare but nodded. Kurama, I look forward to working with you. The large fox rose a brow at Naruto, said man shrugged. Do you want me to establish a link so you two can talk, or do you have that ready to go already, Kurama? Kyuubi snorted and rolled his eyes. You have a better temper than my half did. Also before we go, there is something I need to show you all. The group nodded as Naruto lifted up his left bang showing the seal around his eye to all. Natsumi, thinking it was a tattoo, complimented him on how cool it looked. The entire room dropped in temperature. It was not from Naruto though. No, Kurama was angry. That is not cool, ninjan, that is a leash, a brand. It is used to force you under someone's will. Do not ever say such disgusting things in front of me again. Kurama bellowed. The waters around them had vanished from the force in his voice. Naruto, Is this what I think it is? Naruto nodded grimly at his father. What? What is it? Natsumi-chan, that is a Uzumaki seal. Anbu years. Naruto panted on the ground. His mask, while he treasured it, was currently in the way. Pulling it off to the side, he emptied his stomach. A firm hand patted him on the back. Well done, Oni. You killed the traitor. Why don't I feel like I did good then? Naruto wiped his mouth and caught a bottle that was thrown towards him, twisting its lid and washing his face and mouth. This is what a stage 3 raiden can do to a body. Naruto nodded weakly, still trying to catch his breath. I can't imagine it was a peaceful way to go. Ain't no need to worry about that, as their Oni. Rat was a rat, he was not worthy to enter our den, Snake. The man chuckled behind his snake mask. Ah, that he was he tasty Oni? This man bugged Naruto, but he was the veteran in their partnership. A rat cannot provide a fitting meal, even if I am only a small Oni. He gave a sadistic grin to his partner, causing him to gasp. Oni, you have bits of rib cage in your mouth. Naruto panicked and quickly tried to wash it out, only stopping when he saw a snake holding his sides. Sorry, it was your hair, not mouth. Naruto groaned as he picked himself up and shakily stood to his feet. He didn't stay standing long. He was quickly thrown over the shoulder of Snake. Said man chucked the Oni mask back over Naruto's face and headed back to HQ. People cleared a path for the pair. Their job was well known. It was surprising Naruto was chosen at such a young age, only 10 and already an executor. An executor, in a few words, is an Anbu who is trained to kill Anbu. When the old Oni vanished after passing Naruto, Snake quickly snapped the boy up, holding him close ever since. It was not just Anbu they hunted. No, from the top of the top right down to civilians. If they needed to be killed to protect the hidden leaf, an executor was already watching them. Do you find it strange, Oni? Naruto grunted at the man's question. I suppose you're right, they should sell pizza on Thursday. Sometimes I wonder if you act that way to bug me. Snake put Naruto down on the ground and patted his head. Does it work? Not nearly as well as it should. Snake chuckled at Naruto's comment. What am I going to do with you, Oni?